They held a candle for me while I was still breathing. I'm not being dramatic. I mean an actual candle. A whole table covered in white flowers. A framed photo of me smiling like I didn't know my own kids were about to erase me from the world. People stood around whispering, "She was such a good mother," dabbing their eyes like they were in some sad movie. And I was standing in the back of the room, hoodie up, heart pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to punch its way out of my ribs. I watched my own memorial. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. But let me back up, because if I tell it from the start, you'll understand why a 66-year-old woman ended up hiding in a church hallway, listening to strangers offer condolences over a death that never happened. My name is Marilyn Carter, 66, widow. Sweet old lady, according to the neighbors who wave at me like I'm harmless. I've lived in the same house outside Columbus, Ohio for 38 years, long enough for the porch steps to have the exact dip where my husband used to sit after mowing the lawn. That house is not just wood and paint. It's my whole life. It's where I raised my kids, where I cried when my husband passed, where I paid every mortgage payment on time, even when I had to skip groceries and live off canned soup for a week. And for a while, I thought my kids respected that. After my husband died, my son Ethan started showing up more. At first it felt comforting. He'd bring takeout, fix a squeaky cabinet hinge, do little things that made me feel like maybe I wasn't alone in the world. Then his wife Kayla started coming too. Kayla had that polished, Pinterest-perfect vibe, smooth hair, perfect nails, smile that never wrinkled. The first month she was sweet as pie. She'd hug me extra long, call me Mama M, and say things like, "We just want you safe." Safe. That word became her favorite. At first, I didn't question it. I mean, I'm not blind. I know I'm older. My knees crack when I stand. I forget where I put my reading glasses sometimes. Normal stuff. But then it got weird. It started with Kayla asking questions that didn't feel like concern. They felt like inventory. Do you still have the deed in your name? Who's listed as your beneficiary? Do you have a will? Where do you keep your documents? She'd say it sweet, like it was casual conversation, same tone she used when asking if I wanted more iced tea. Ethan would sit there scrolling his phone, barely looking up, and when I'd glance over, he'd suddenly lock his screen like he got caught doing something shady. Then came the doctor talk. "Mom, we should set you up with a new primary." "Mama M, you've been looking tired. Maybe we should check your meds." You know, dementia can start with tiny things. Dementia. They said it like it was a weather forecast, like it was inevitable, like it was already happening. I laughed the first time because what else do you do? "I'm fine," I told them. "I still beat you both at Scrabble." Kayla laughed too quick and fake. "Of course you do." But her eyes didn't laugh. Her eyes measured me. And then, about 2 months ago, they started showing up with paperwork. Not like, sign this for a school trip paperwork. Grown-up paperwork. The kind that comes in stiff folders with sticky notes and highlighted lines. Kayla slid one across my kitchen table like she was closing a deal. "It's just a simple form," she said. "It lets Ethan help with bills if you ever get sick." I didn't touch it. I stared at the title instead. Power of Attorney. I looked at Ethan. "Why would I need this?" He finally looked up from his phone. "Mom, it's not a big deal. It's just planning." Planning. Funny word that. Because when people say planning, they usually mean for your benefit. But the way Kayla leaned forward like she was hungry told me something else. That night, after they left, I checked my front door lock. Twice. Then I went to my bedroom and pulled out my little fireproof lockbox from the closet. My will was still there. My deed, my bank info, everything. Nothing stolen. Yet, still, my hands were shaking like I'd just walked out of a car crash. And that's when my phone buzzed an unknown number. No caller ID, just a voicemail notification. I hit play, expecting some scam. Instead, I heard my daughter Lena's voice, whispering like she was afraid someone might hear her. "Mom, don't say anything out loud, but I found something, and they're moving fast. If you love your life, do not sign anything." My throat went dry. Then she said one more thing so quiet it barely sounded real. "They already told people you're gone." And the call cut off. I stood there in my bedroom with the phone pressed to my ear, staring at my own reflection in the mirror. Because in that moment, I didn't feel old. I felt haunted. I called Lena back 5 times, no answer. Then I got a text from a neighbor that made my blood turn ice cold. "Marilyn, I'm so sorry for your loss. I had no idea you'd been sick." "Loss? What loss?" "When I was standing right there. When I read that text again, I'm so sorry for your loss. I swear my knees almost gave out." Loss. Like I was already a memory. I didn't respond. I just sat on the edge of my bed, phone shaking in my hand, trying to breathe through the panic climbing up my chest. I checked the sender's name again. Mrs. Donnelly. She lived 2 houses down. We waved at each other every morning like clockwork. She knew my routine. She knew I was alive. Or she thought she did. I typed back slowly. "What loss?" 3 dots popped up almost instantly, then disappeared, then popped up again. Finally, her reply came. "Your kids told us. They said you passed peacefully last night. We were all so shocked." Passed peacefully last night. I was very much alive last night. I had watched reruns of Jeopardy, folded laundry, and eaten leftover spaghetti straight out of the container like a normal human being. My heart started racing. Not panic racing, survival racing. Because this wasn't just talk anymore. This wasn't overprotective kids. This was something else, something calculated. I called Lena again, straight to voicemail. I called Ethan. Ring, ring, ring. He picked up on the 4th ring, voice already heavy like he'd been crying, or pretending to. "Mom?" he said, slow and cautious, like he wasn't sure what to say next. "Why did Mrs. Donnelly text me condolences?" I asked. No greeting, no small talk. There was a pause. Too long. Then he sighed. "Mom, you shouldn't be on the phone right now." That's when I knew. I knew in the pit of my stomach that something was seriously, dangerously wrong. "What did you tell people?" I asked. Another pause. Then Kayla's voice cut in from the background. "Ethan, let me talk to her." I could practically picture her hand out, nails perfect, already in control. "Marilyn," she said softly, like she was calming a toddler. "Please don't get upset. Stress isn't good for you. Answer me." I snapped. She took a breath. "We told people you had a medical emergency." "A medical emergency is not a funeral," I said. My voice didn't even sound like mine anymore. Silence. Then she said it. The sentence that flipped a switch in my brain. "We had to act fast." Act fast. Like they were putting out a fire. "What exactly did you act on?" I asked. Kayla's tone shifted, still calm, but colder. "Mom, we love you. But you've been confused lately. You don't always remember things clearly." That was a lie. A bold one. "I remember this conversation perfectly," I said. "So try again." Ethan finally spoke. "We didn't want you to find out like this." "Find out what?" I demanded. Another pause. Then Kayla said it, clean and sharp like she'd rehearsed it. "There's already an obituary draft." I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. "You wrote me an obituary?" I whispered. "It's precautionary," she replied. "Legal advice." Legal advice. I hung up, not because I was done, but because I needed to think. Fast. I locked my bedroom door and opened my laptop. My fingers flew across the keyboard like muscle memory took over. My name, my city, obituary. And there it was. A local funeral home website, a private service listing. No date yet, just my full name, my age, my husband's name, my children's names listed as survived by. Survived by. I was listed as deceased, but not buried yet. My hands went numb. This wasn't gossip. This wasn't rumor. This was paperwork, digital footprints, a trail being laid down carefully so it would look real. That's when I remembered something Kayla had said weeks ago, smiling over coffee. Once something is documented, people don't question it. I grabbed my keys and my purse. I didn't know where I was going yet, but I knew one thing. I could not stay in that house. Because if the world already thought I was dead, all it would take was one signature, one doctor, one official stamp, and I wouldn't just be invisible. I'd be erased. As I stepped out the back door, my phone buzzed again. A text from Lena. Just one sentence. Mom, if you're reading this, don't go home. They already buried you on paper. I got into my car and drove without a destination because the truth finally hit me. If my own children could convince the world I was dead, how long before they made it permanent? I drove for almost an hour before I realized I was shaking too hard to keep going. Not crying, shaking. The kind that starts in your hands and crawls up your arms like your body's trying to warn you before your brain catches up. I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner off Route 23. Neon lights buzzing, trucks idling, the kind of place nobody looks twice at an older woman sitting alone. Perfect. I parked in the far corner and just sat there, engine off, gripping the steering wheel. My kids had declared me dead. Not metaphorically, not emotionally. Legally, that's when the anger finally hit. Not the screaming kind, the cold, focused kind that makes you dangerous if you know how to use it. I went inside, ordered black coffee, and took the booth with my back to the wall. Old habit. My husband taught me that one always see who's coming. I pulled out my phone and started documenting everything. Screenshots of the obituary page. Screenshots of the condolence texts. Call logs. Voicemails. Timestamps. If this was a game, I was done playing defense. That's when Lena called. I answered before the first ring finished. Mom, she said, breathless. Thank God. I was scared they'd already. Stop, I said. Tell me everything. Slowly. She took a breath. Okay. 2 weeks ago, Kayla came into my job. She thought I wasn't there. I worked the front desk at the medical records office, remember? I remembered. She asked about accessing records. Your records. Claimed she had power of attorney. My stomach twisted. She didn't, I said. I know, Lena replied. That's why I checked. There was nothing on file. But she was confident, like it was already handled. I closed my eyes. She said something else, Lena continued. She asked how fast death certificates get processed if the family submits everything. That's when I knew this wasn't impulsive. This was staged, planned. How long? I asked. Months, Lena said quietly. They've been setting this up for months. I stared at the chipped Formica table in front of me, thinking about every smile Kayla ever gave me. Every, "Are you okay, Mama M?" Every fake hug. All rehearsal. Mom, Lena said, they're trying to move your assets. I saw a preliminary filing with the county property transfer pending death verification. Death verification. I was alive and breathing in a diner, and somewhere in a government office, I was already gone. Listen to me, Lena said urgently. You need a lawyer, not tomorrow, tonight. I know, I said. I just don't know who to trust. There was a pause. Then she said, I do. She gave me a name. Rachel Thompson, elder law, Columbus-based. Ruthless, according to Lena. The kind of woman who doesn't blink when families implode. I paid my bill and drove straight there. Rachel's office lights were still on when I arrived. It was almost 9 p.m. A woman in her late 40s opened the door, sharp eyes, no nonsense. "You're Marilyn," she said. "Not a question." I nodded. She let me in and closed the door behind us like she was sealing a vault. I laid everything out: the obituary, the calls, the paperwork, the precautionary power of attorney, the attempted access to my medical records. Rachel didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said something that chilled me more than anything else so far. "They're not trying to kill you," she said. I blinked. "Excuse me?" "They're trying to legally replace you," she continued. "If you're dead on paper, incapacitated in court, or declared unfit even temporarily, they can move everything before anyone stops it." My voice came out hoarse. "And if I fight it?" Rachel smiled. "Not kindly. Then we let them keep thinking you're dead." The word hung in the air. Dead. She leaned forward. "If they've already told the world you're gone, we use that. You disappear, on purpose, long enough to watch them expose themselves." My heart slammed against my ribs. "You want me to fake my own disappearance?" "No," she corrected calmly. "They already did that part for you. All we have to do is let them finish the job." I thought about Ethan, the boy I raised, the man who let this happen. I thought about Kayla's smile. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something close to control. As I left Rachel's office, my phone buzzed with a new alert. Memorial service scheduled for Friday. Friday was 3 days away. And apparently I was about to attend my own funeral. Friday. Seeing that word on the screen made my stomach flip like I was on a roller coaster I never agreed to ride. Memorial service scheduled for Friday. Private. Family and close friends only. Private. That meant control. That meant no questions. That meant they could shape the story however they wanted. Soft music, sad speeches, a carefully edited version of my life where I conveniently stopped breathing when it was most profitable. Rachel read the alert over my shoulder and let out a low whistle. "Well," she said, "they're moving faster than I thought." I looked at her. "Can they actually do this?" "They already are," she replied. "Funeral homes don't ask a lot of questions if the paperwork looks clean. And trust me, people don't like questioning death. It makes them uncomfortable." That sentence stuck with me. People don't question death, which is exactly why my kids picked it. Rachel laid everything out like a chessboard. No panic, no drama, just moves. First, she had me sign a temporary asset freeze quietly. No notifications sent, no alerts to Ethan or Kayla. It wouldn't stop them from trying, but it would stop anything from actually going through. Second, she contacted a forensic physician she trusted. Not to examine me, but to document me. Full evaluation, video recorded, time-stamped. Proof that I was alive, alert, competent, and very much breathing. Third, and this was the part that made my skin prickle, she told me I couldn't go home. "You show up now, they'll pivot," she said. "They'll say you're confused, or manipulated, or having an episode. We need them comfortable enough to slip." So I disappeared. Rachel set me up in a small extended stay hotel outside the city. Nothing fancy, nothing traceable. I paid cash, signed in under my maiden name. That first night alone, the silence was loud. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about how surreal it was that the world was already mourning me while I was wide awake, scrolling through news on my phone. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A group message. Service details attached. It was from Kayla. I almost laughed. Almost. Attached was a PDF, tasteful gray and white. My name in elegant script. A photo they'd pulled from my Facebook, cropped to make me look softer, older. The text underneath read, "We appreciate your prayers during this difficult time. Mom meant everything to us." Everything. Except alive. I scrolled. They'd included a short life summary. where I was born, where I worked, how devoted I was to my family. One line made my chest ache. Marilyn's greatest pride was her children. I shut the phone off and sat there in the dark, breathing through the anger, because I knew something they didn't. This memorial wasn't the end. It was the bait. The next day, Rachel called me in the morning. They filed a petition, she said. Emergency conservatorship, citing your recent passing and previous cognitive decline. I laughed. It came out sharp. So I'm dead and senile now? On paper, she said. Which means they're going to try to finalize transfers immediately after the service. Emotionally charged moment. Judges are human. That's when it clicked. The funeral wasn't just for show. It was the trigger. Let them, I said. Rachel posed. You sure? I thought about Ethan avoiding my eyes, Kayla sliding documents across my table like menus. The obituary, the condolences, the way they spoke about me like I was already gone. I want to see how far they'll go, I said. I want them comfortable. Rachel exhaled slowly. Then here's what we do. She leaned in and lowered her voice. You attend the memorial, she said, but not the way they expect. My pulse spiked. You want me to walk in? No, she replied. I want you to watch. She explained everything where I'd stand, who would be there, how they'd behave when they thought the story was sealed. They will expose themselves, she said. People always do when they think the chapter is closed. That afternoon, I drove past my own house for the first time since leaving. Cars lined the street, flowers on the porch, a sympathy wreath hanging on my door. I didn't stop. I couldn't. Because watching people mourn a lie about you does something to your soul. That night, I got one more message. From Ethan this time. Mom, I hope you're at peace. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back one word. Soon. Friday was coming fast, and while everyone else was preparing to say goodbye to me forever, I was preparing to hear exactly how my children planned to profit from my death. Friday morning came way too calm for what it meant. Sunlight streamed through the thin hotel curtains like it was just another normal day, birds chirping, traffic humming, the world doing what it always does when something terrible is about to happen to you personally. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror longer than usual, studying my face. I didn't look dead. I didn't look confused. I looked like a woman who hadn't slept much, but whose eyes were wide open now. Rachel called me at 8:12 a.m. They just checked in with the funeral home, she said. Everything's on schedule. Of course it is, I replied. They've also contacted the county clerk. They want filings submitted this afternoon right after the service. Right after they buried me. I dressed carefully. Jeans. A plain gray sweater. Nothing flashy. Nothing that screamed, look at me. I pulled my hair back and put on a baseball cap, something I never wear, which almost made me laugh. I wasn't going there to be seen. I was going there to listen. Rachel met me 2 blocks away from the church. She parked in an alley and handed me a small wireless earbud. Sound only, she said. No recording, just awareness. Awareness. That word again. We walked the rest of the way separately. The church parking lot was packed, cars everywhere, people hugging, crying, doing that awkward half-smile people do when they don't know what to say to the grieving family. I slipped in through a side entrance and took a seat in the back hallway, just outside the main room. The door was cracked open enough for sound to spill out. Soft piano music played. Then Kayla's voice. She was crying, loudly, theatrically, the kind of crying that comes with pauses so people can look. She was the strongest woman I've ever known, Kayla said. She raised 2 incredible children on her own after losing the love of her life. Incredible children. I clenched my jaw. Ethan spoke next. His voice shook. I almost believed him. My mom always said family was everything, he said, and we're going to honor her by staying united, by making sure her legacy lives on. Legacy. Funny how that word means money when you're not in the room. I leaned closer to the door. After the speeches, the tone shifted. Less grief, more logistics. I heard whispers. She left everything to them, right? Yeah, Kayla handled the paperwork. Smart to do it fast. These things get messy. Kayla's laugh floated through the room. Soft, confident. It's already taken care of, she said. Mom didn't want complications. I almost stepped through the door right then. Almost. But Rachel's words echoed in my head. Let them finish the job. The service ended. Chairs scraped. People filed out. I stayed put. That's when the real conversation started. Kayla dropped the grieving act fast. Too fast. Did the clerk confirm? She asked. Yes, Ethan replied. We submit this afternoon. The judge signed off on expedited processing. Good, she said. Once it's done, there's no undoing it. No undoing. I felt something crack in my chest, not heartbreak. Resolve. They were already counting. They'll feel bad questioning it, Kayla continued. Who challenges a grieving family? Especially when the woman was already declining. Declining. I stepped back into the shadow of the hallway as they walked past Ethan first, eyes red, shoulders slumped. Kayla right behind him, phone already in hand, smiling at a message. Neither of them looked my way. Because why would they? Dead people don't watch. Rachel texted me one sentence. They said too much. We left separately again. Back in my car, my hands were steady for the first time all week. I knew their timeline. I knew their confidence. And I knew exactly when they thought it would be over. That afternoon. What they didn't know was that while they were planning to finalize my death, I was preparing to walk back into my life. But not yet. Not until they signed everything. As I pulled onto the highway, my phone buzzed with a notification from the county portal. Asset transfer review in progress. They were minutes away from taking everything. And that's exactly when I decided to stop hiding. The county portal didn't care that I was alive. That was the first thing that hit me as I stared at the screen in the parking lot, engine running, hands steady, heart quiet, in a way that scared me more than panic ever had. Asset transfer review in progress. Just words. Clean, neutral, no emotion, no humanity. Rachel called before I could blink. They filed fast, she said. Too fast. That tells me they're confident. Confident people make mistakes, I replied. She gave a short laugh. Exactly. But listen carefully. Once the judge stamps approval, reversing it becomes a war. We don't want a war. So we stop it before the stamp, I said. No, she corrected. We let them think it's stamped. That's when she explained the next move. There's a quiet moment in any legal process, a gap between submission and confirmation. A moment where everyone assumes the machine will do what machines always do. That's where humans get sloppy. Rachel had already arranged something called a delayed verification request. Totally legal, totally invisible to Ethan and Kayla. It wouldn't stop the process outright, but it would flag it just long enough to create uncertainty. Uncertainty makes people talk. Your job, Rachel said, is to let them believe they won. I drove to a grocery store parking lot near my old house and waited. Sure enough, around 3:40 p.m., Ethan's car pulled in. He didn't look like a man who'd just lost his mother. He looked relieved. Kayla was with him, sunglasses on, phone glued to her ear. I parked 2 rows over and watched. They got out laughing, actual laughter this time. No trembling hands, no grief. That hurt more than the funeral. Kayla said something into her phone that made my jaw tighten. Yes, it's basically done, she said. We just have to wait for the system to update. Basically done. They loaded groceries into the trunk like they were planning dinner, not fallout. I stayed in my car until they left, then followed at a distance. Old habit again. You don't live 66 years without picking up a few instincts. They went straight home. My home. Lights came on in the living room, curtains open, no shame, no fear. Rachel texted me again. They think the door's closed. That night, I didn't sleep. Not from fear, from focus. At 6:00 my phone buzzed. An email from the county clerk's office. Verification delay. Additional documentation required. That was it. No explanation. No accusation. Just a speed bump. At 7:03 a.m., my phone rang. Ethan. I let it ring. At 7:06, Kayla called. I answered that one. Hello? I said softly. There was silence on the other end. Then sharp breathing. Mom? I smiled. Yes, I said. Still me. What? How? She stopped herself. Reset. Where are you? Alive? I replied. Concerned, confused why the county needs more paperwork for my estate. Her voice changed instantly. Tight, defensive. They always do that, she said quickly. It's routine. Funny, I replied. Because the clerk says it's because I'm not deceased. Dead silence. Then she whispered, Who are you with? That question told me everything. I'll talk to Ethan, she snapped and hung up. Rachel called seconds later. They're panicking, she said calmly. They just contacted the judge's assistant. That means they're scared. I watched my old house from down the block as Ethan stormed out the front door, phone to his ear, pacing. I remembered him as a kid, how he used to pace like that before confessing he'd broken something. Some habits never die. Rachel's voice softened. This is where it gets dangerous emotionally. They might try to reach you, manipulate you, make you doubt yourself. I'm done doubting, I said. Good, she replied, because the next step will force them to choose double down or collapse. I hung up and took one last look at the house. For the first time, it didn't feel like home. It felt like a crime scene waiting for a confession. As I turned the corner, my phone lit up with a message from Ethan. Mom, please, we need to talk before this gets worse. And that's when I realized they weren't scared of losing money anymore. They were scared of me. Ethan's message sat on my screen like a loaded question. Mom, please, we need to talk before this gets worse. Worse for who? Because from where I was sitting in a borrowed sedan, parked behind a strip mall, I felt clearer than I had in months. Calm, even. The kind of calm that only shows up when you finally understand the game and realize you're not the one losing anymore. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Rachel. They're reaching out, I said. Soft voice, emergency tone. Of course they are, she replied. They think you're confused but reachable. That's their comfort zone. What do? You let them talk, she said, but not alone, and not yet. She told me to wait, to give them just enough time to stew. Fear loosens tongues faster than anger ever will. 2 hours later, my phone rang again. Ethan, I answered this time. Mom, he said, and his voice cracked like he was 14 again. Where are you? I'm safe, I said. That's all you need to know. There was a pause. I could hear Kayla whispering in the background. Coaching. Always coaching. Mom, he tried again, softer. The system flagged something. We just want to clear it up. Clear what up? I asked. That you're okay, he said. Okay. Not alive. Not breathing. Okay. I'm fine, I replied. Are you? Silence. Then Kayla cut in, unable to help herself. This is getting out of hand, she said. People are asking questions. People? I repeated. Officials, she corrected quickly. We're just trying to protect you. There it was. Protect. The most dangerous word in their vocabulary. Protect me from what? I asked. Kayla sighed, sharp and irritated. From yourself. I closed my eyes. From yourself. Like I was a liability. like I was a leaking pipe they needed to shut off before it flooded their plans. "I want to meet," Ethan said suddenly. "Face to face." "No," I replied. "Please," he said. "Just us." I could hear the panic creeping in now, the edges fraying. Rachel texted me mid-call. "Good. They're unraveling. I'll meet," I said slowly. "But not today, and not privately." Ethan exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. "Okay, when?" "Tomorrow morning," I said. "Public place, coffee shop, cameras." Kayla protested instantly. "That's not necessary. It is for me," I said. "If I'm as confused as you say, witnesses should help." She didn't respond. I hung up before they could regroup. That night, I barely slept, not because of fear, but because memories kept surfacing. Ethan at 6 years old, holding my hand too tight crossing the street. Ethan at 16, asking me to cover for him when he dented the car. Ethan at 32, sitting at my kitchen table while his wife slid documents toward me like traps. Same boy, different choices. Morning came gray and quiet. Rachel met me across the street from the coffee shop. She didn't come in with me, she never needed to. "You don't confront," she reminded me. "You listen." The bell chimed as I stepped inside. Ethan was already there. Kayla too, sitting stiff, arms crossed, coffee untouched. Ethan stood when he saw me, eyes wide like he'd seen a ghost. Which, in a way, he had. "Mom," he whispered. I sat down. "Explain," I said calmly. Kayla spoke first. "There was a misunderstanding." "Of course there was." Ethan leaned forward. "We thought you were declining. The doctor said—" "What doctor?" I asked. He froze. Kayla answered instead. "A specialist." "Name," I said. She didn't give one. That told me everything. "You told people I was dead," I said. Not angry, not loud, just true. Ethan's eyes filled. "We were trying to keep things simple." "Simple for who?" "For everyone," Kayla snapped. "You were holding things up." "Holding things up?" "Like a process. Like a transaction." I stood. "This conversation isn't over," I said. "But it won't happen here." Ethan looked desperate now. "Mom, please, if this goes legal." "It already is," I said. I walked out without looking back. Rachel texted me the moment I hit the sidewalk. "They lied. Good. Next comes proof." That afternoon, Rachel forwarded me a file she'd just received, medical forms with my name on them, forged signatures at the bottom, and a doctor's stamp I'd never seen before. When Rachel sent me the file, I didn't open it right away. I stared at the email subject line like it might bite me. Medical evaluation, Carter, Maryland. My name, typed clean, official, like I wasn't the one who'd lived inside it for 66 years. I opened it, and just like that, I learned what it feels like to read your own lie written by strangers. The document claimed I showed signs of progressive cognitive decline, that I was confused about time and place, that I required assistance for daily decision-making. I almost laughed. According to this paper, I didn't even know what year it was. But what made my stomach turn wasn't the words. It was the signature. Mine, or something pretending to be. Same shaky slant. Same looping M close enough that someone glancing wouldn't question it, but wrong enough that I knew instantly. "I never signed this," I said into the phone when Rachel called. "I know," she replied. "That's why this is good." "Good." That word didn't sit right with me yet. She explained. The doctor listed Dr. Alan Brewer had a history, not criminal, but questionable. Sloppy evaluations, fast turnarounds, willing to rely on family testimony over patient interviews. In other words, useful. They were planning to present this after the asset transfer, Rachel said. Once money moves, courts stop listening. "So they were going to kill me legally, then lock me up?" I asked. "Yes," she said. No sugarcoating. A conservatorship would follow, restricted access, supervised visits. You'd be protected in a facility while they managed everything. I pictured white walls, locked doors, someone else deciding when I ate, slept, spoke, all because I trusted the wrong people. Rachel continued. We already submitted a counter-evaluation, independent physician, full video documentation, and it destroys this, she said simply. But I could hear the hesitation. This alone won't finish them, she added. It just stops the next move. Then what finishes it? I asked. She paused. Intent. That word landed heavy. Fraud requires proof of intent, Rachel said. Not just bad paperwork. We need to show they knew you were alive, competent, and acted anyway. How? I asked. By letting them try again. That night, I lay awake thinking about that. Let them try again. It felt insane, risky, like standing in front of a moving car to prove the driver wasn't stopping. But Rachel was right about one thing: people like Kayla don't stop when they get caught once. They get smarter, meaner. The next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mrs. Carter? A man asked. Yes, this is Dr. Brewer's office. We need to reschedule your evaluation. I smiled. Reschedule? I said sweetly. I didn't schedule one. A pause. Papers rustling. There seems to be some confusion, he said. Oh, I'm sure, I replied. But since you already evaluated me without seeing me, maybe you should explain that to the medical board. Dead silence. He hung up. Within minutes, Kayla texted. Kayla, why did you call the doctor? Me. Why did you sign my name? No reply. 10 minutes later, Ethan called. Mom, he said fast, voice tight. This is spiraling. Funny, I replied. That's exactly how dementia was described in that report. He swallowed audibly. Kayla was just trying to help. Help who? I asked. Him. He didn't say it, but the silence did. You still have time, I said quietly. Tell the truth. What truth? He asked, almost pleading. That you knew I was alive, I replied. That you knew I was competent, and that you went forward anyway. His breathing changed. I waited. I didn't think it would go this far, he finally said. That was it. That was intent. Rachel texted me seconds later, like she'd been listening in. That call was enough. I sat back in the chair, heart pounding not from fear, but from finality. Because once intent is proven, lies stop protecting people. That evening, Rachel called with one final update. Tomorrow, the court orders an emergency hearing. And this time, my children wouldn't be speaking for me. They'd be answering to me. The word hearing hit different when it wasn't theoretical. Emergency hearing. 48 hours. Mandatory appearance. Rachel laid it out like a weather report, calm voice. No drama, but my hands still trembled when I set the phone down. For weeks, my kids had been talking about me. Deciding for me? Erasing me without ever looking me in the eye. Now they'd have to do it in a room where lies echo. Rachel met me outside the courthouse early the next morning. No big entrance, no grand reveal yet. Just a quiet side door and a firm hand on my shoulder. You ready? She asked. As I'll ever be, I said. The waiting room was cold. Too cold. Ethan and Kayla were already there when we walked in. Ethan looked wrecked. Dark circles under his eyes, shoulders slumped like the weight of everything had finally landed. Kayla, on the other hand, looked sharp, blazer pressed, hair perfect, calm face. That scared me more than panic ever could. She saw me and froze. Not shock calculation. Then she smiled. Marilyn, she said softly. You look, well enough to be here, I replied. Rachel didn't let them talk. She guided me to a seat and leaned in close. Let them speak first, she whispered. People tell the truth when they think they're in control. The judge entered. Everyone stood. This wasn't a criminal courtroom. No jury, no drama. Just a judge, a clerk, and a stack of files thick enough to ruin lives quietly. The judge looked over his glasses. We are here regarding the estate of Marilyn Carter. I raised my hand. I'm here, I said. The room shifted. The judge blinked. Once. Twice. Yes, he said slowly. I see that. Kayla's attorney stood. Your Honor, this matter concerns of competency. Rachel stood immediately. Which have already been disproven. She submitted the counter-evaluation. Video footage, medical testimony, time-stamped documentation. The judge skimmed, frowned. Miss Carter, he asked me directly, are you aware that a death notice was filed under your name? Yes, I said. I read my own obituary. A murmur rippled through the room. The judge turned to Ethan and Kayla. Who filed it? Kayla answered without hesitation. We did. Why? The judge asked. To protect her assets, Kayla said. She was declining. We acted in good faith. Rachel didn't move, didn't interrupt. The judge looked at me again. Miss Carter, do you feel protected? No, I said. I feel erased. Silence. Then Rachel stepped forward. Your Honor, we have evidence of forged medical documentation, unauthorized access attempts to patient records, and recorded communication demonstrating awareness of Miss Carter's competency. The judge's eyes sharpened. Recorded? Rachel nodded. Phone records, statements, admissions. She didn't play them yet. She didn't need to. Kayla shifted. For the first time, the mask cracked. Your Honor, Kayla said quickly, this is a family misunderstanding that's escalated unnecessarily. The judge leaned back. Miss Carter, what do you want? That question hit me harder than anything else so far. What did I want? Justice? Punishment? An apology that would never mean the same thing again? I took a breath. I want my life back, I said, and I want the court to know I was alive, capable, and ignored. The judge nodded slowly. I am issuing an immediate injunction, he said. All estate transfers are halted, conservatorship petitions denied, and I am referring this matter for further investigation. Ethan dropped his head. Kayla's lips pressed into a thin line. The gavel came down. Not loud. Final. Outside the courtroom, Ethan caught up to me. His voice shook. Mom, I never meant for it to go this far. I looked at him. Really looked. You let it, I said. Kayla stood back, arms crossed, eyes cold. This isn't over. Rachel stepped between us. Actually, she said calmly, it is. We walked out into the sunlight together. For the first time in weeks, I felt solid, real, alive. That night, Rachel called me with one last warning. The court stopped them, but Kayla hasn't. And when I checked my voicemail, there was a message from a number I didn't recognize. You think this makes you safe? The voicemail played twice before I even realized I was holding my breath. You think this makes you safe? No name, no threat spelled out. Just enough poison to linger. Rachel listened to it on speaker, her expression unreadable. That's not Ethan, she said immediately. I know, I replied. Kayla didn't hide when she wanted control, but this was different. This was a warning meant to rattle me. To remind me that even though the court stopped the paperwork, fear still lived in the shadows. Rachel reported it, logged it, filed it under potential intimidation. Paper trails matter, she reminded me. But paper doesn't stop someone who thinks they're losing everything. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I stayed at the same extended stay hotel, lights on, TV noise filling the silence. I kept thinking about how calm Kayla looked in that courtroom, how she didn't beg, didn't cry, didn't even flinch. People like that don't quit. The next morning, Rachel called early. They've been contacted by investigators, she said. Medical board, county clerk, financial crimes unit. Kayla too? I asked, especially Kayla. I felt a strange mix of relief and grief, because even now, some part of me wished this wasn't happening to my family, that I could rewind time and make different choices for all of us. But wishing doesn't undo intent. That afternoon, I finally returned to my house. My house. The driveway looked the same. The garden needed water. The porch steps still dipped in that familiar spot. But the air felt off. Rachel insisted on coming with me. She stood by the door while I unlocked it, watching like she expected something to jump out. Inside, things were cleaner than I remembered. Too clean. Drawers rearranged, files moved. My office desk stripped bare. They were looking for something, Rachel said quietly. Or hiding it, I replied. In my bedroom, the lockbox was gone. My chest tightened. But when I opened the closet, there it was shoved onto the top shelf, dusty, like an afterthought. I checked the contents. Everything intact. Almost everything. One folder was missing. Rachel frowned. Which one? The insurance policies, I said, and my medical directives. That told me Kayla wasn't done planning. That night, I changed the locks. All of them. Installed cameras, motion sensors, alarms. I wasn't scared. I was prepared. At Duca-Tortsangses, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. She's not okay, Mom. She's blaming you for everything. I stared at the screen for a long time. Me, where are you? Ethan. Not with her. Me. Good. Stay that way. Minutes later, another message, this time from an unknown number. You took what wasn't yours to take. I showed Rachel. She didn't blink. That's escalation. What does that mean? I asked. It means she's losing control, Rachel said. And people who lose control get sloppy. Sloppy people leave evidence. The next day, the call came from the investigator. Miss Carter, he said, we found something you should see. Rachel and I drove straight to the county office. They laid it out on the table: emails, bank drafts, unsigned agreements. All traced to Kayla. All dated before my obituary. She hadn't reacted to my death. She'd planned it. The investigator leaned in. We're moving forward. I closed my eyes. Not in relief. In acceptance. Because justice doesn't feel good when it involves people you once loved. As we left the building, Rachel's phone rang. She listened, then looked at me. They issued a warrant, she said, and Kayla just disappeared. When Rachel said the word disappeared, it didn't sound dramatic. It sounded clinical, final, like something that had already happened whether I was ready for it or not. Define disappeared, I said. Rachel didn't answer right away. She unlocked her car, got in, then looked at me across the console. She didn't show up to work. Her phone's off. Her credit cards haven't been used since last night. I swallowed. Ethan? He hasn't heard from her. That part hit harder than I expected. Because no matter how much damage Kayla had done, Ethan still loved her. And love has a way of blinding people even after the truth is right in front of them. The police called me that evening. Not to accuse. Not to question. To inform. Miss Carter, the officer said, we're treating this as a potential flight risk. We believe Miss Kayla Carter may be attempting to avoid arrest. Avoid arrest. For forging documents. For filing a false death notice. For trying to legally erase a living person. Me. I sat on my couch, wrapped in a blanket that still smelled like lavender detergent, and tried to reconcile the quiet room with the chaos that had just unfolded. Rachel stayed close. She didn't hover, but she didn't leave either. At 9:47 p.m., there was a knock at my door. Not loud, not aggressive. Measured. Rachel's hand went up instantly. Don't open it. I know, I said. The The knock came again. Then a voice. Marilyn? Ethan. Rachel mouthed no. I ignored her and walked to the door anyway, not to open it, but to stand behind it. What do you want? I asked. I just need to talk, he said. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. Through the door, I replied. Silence. Then, she's gone. I know. She left me a note, he said. That got my attention. What kind of note? I asked. A goodbye, he whispered, and a warning. I closed my eyes. Rachel leaned closer, listening. She said if I chose you, she'd make sure I regretted it. The words hung there, heavy and ugly. I didn't know she was capable of this, he said. I swear, I told you to tell the truth, I replied quietly. You waited too long. I know, he said. I know. His voice cracked. I don't expect forgiveness, he continued, but I need you to know something. I waited. She didn't act alone. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I asked. She had help, he said. Not legally, not officially, but someone coached her, someone who knew the system. Rachel stiffened. Who? I asked. A friend of hers from before we met, he said. He works in records, county level. She bragged about it once, said he owed her. Rachel was already typing notes into her phone. That changes things, she murmured. Ethan's voice trembled. They talked about making it clean, making it look like you faded out naturally. I leaned my forehead against the door. Not weak, not scared, just tired. You need to give that note to Rachel, I said. And everything else you know. I will, he said immediately. I already told the police. That surprised me. I'm done protecting her, he added. I should have protected you. I didn't respond. Because there are apologies that arrive too late to land. The next morning, the news broke. Local woman sought an elder fraud case. They didn't use my name, but they didn't have to. Rachel sat beside me as we watched the report. Surveillance stills. Kayla's car caught on a highway camera. A blurred image of her face at a gas station near the state line. She looked nothing like the composed woman in the courtroom. She looked desperate. Rachel turned off the TV. This ends soon, she said. How? I asked. Because people who run don't run forever, she replied. They make one mistake. As if on cue, her phone rang. She listened. Her eyes lifted to mine. They found her car, she said. My heart skipped. Where? Abandoned, Rachel replied. And Marilyn, she left something behind. When Rachel told me what Kayla left in the car, my blood went cold because it wasn't money. It was a document with my name on it, signed just hours before she vanished. The document they found in Kayla's abandoned car wasn't dramatic at first glance. No blood, no weapon, no confession scrawled in ink. Just paper. Clean. Typed. Official looking. Rachel laid it out on the kitchen table like it might explode. It was a revoked version of the same forged medical directive dated hours before Kayla disappeared. My name, my fake signature, her handwriting in the margins. One line was circled in red. If delayed, proceed without consent. I didn't need Rachel to explain that. Kayla hadn't been running from consequences. She'd been running toward one last option. She was trying to finalize this, Rachel said quietly. If the court hadn't intervened when it did, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. 2 days later, they found Kayla. Alive. Not triumphant. Not défiant. Broken. She'd crossed into the next state and holed up in a cheap motel, cash only, blinds shut. The warrant caught up with her faster than she expected. When the detective called to tell me, I felt nothing. No joy. No relief. No victory. Just emptiness where family used to live. Ethan came by that evening. Not unannounced this time. He stood on my porch like a kid waiting to be picked up after school. I let him in. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, emotionally. Like something inside him had collapsed and never rebuilt. They arrested her, he said. I know, I replied. She blamed me, he added. Said if I hadn't hesitated, none of this would have happened. I nodded. That sounds like her. He sat across from me at the table where this whole nightmare had started. The same spot where Kayla once slid documents toward me with a smile. I lost everything, he said quietly. My marriage, my reputation, my sense of right and wrong. I looked at him for a long moment. And I lost my children, I said. He flinched. I don't say that to hurt you, I continued. I say it because it's true. Trust doesn't come back just because the danger's gone. He nodded, tears finally spilling. I know. We sat in silence. Not hostile, just real. Rachel called later that night. Charges filed. Fraud, forgery, attempted exploitation of an elder, multiple counts. No plea deal yet. She wanted control, Rachel said, and she thought love made her entitled to it. After we hung up, I walked through my house slowly. The hallway, the kitchen, the bedroom, all the places where I'd been spoken over, decided for, reduced to paperwork. I opened the window and let the night air in. For the first time in weeks, the house felt like mine again. A week later, I went to the courthouse. Not for testimony, for closure. I stood in front of a clerk and said words I never thought I'd have to say. I am alive, and I need the record to reflect that. She smiled gently. We're very glad you are, Miss Carter. I walked out into the sunlight, breathing deep. They tried to bury me with paper. They tried to erase me with signatures. They tried to turn love into leverage. But here's the thing they never understood. I didn't survive because I was strong. I survived because I paid attention. Because I listened when something felt wrong. Because I refused to disappear quietly. That night, I lit a candle. Not for mourning. For proof. Proof that I was here. That I had a voice. That I wasn't finished. And if there's one thing I learned through all of this, it's this. The most dangerous lie isn't, she's dead. It's, she doesn't matter anymore. I blew out the candle and went to bed in my own house, under my own roof, with my name intact. Alive. Still standing. Still Mina.